Well, I chose podcast. One, I think I love to talk. I've been told that, so I talk a lot, which kind of made sense. Then, okay, let's get on a mic and talk as much as I want to. But more so than that, it was really a way to reach more people at once because I can speak on stages and I can write a book. But this just gave a way where I can really stay in contact week after week after week and show up for people every single week. They can expect when the podcast episode is going to come out. And it really, in a way, it kind of forms this trust and this relationship between me and the audience. I hear from them, they hear from me, and that just gave a way where I could feel like a part of the community.
In today's episode of my podcast story, we have Shannon Bryant, a pattern transformation expert and the host of the globally ranked podcast, Topself. Shannon is dedicated to helping women break free from the patterns that hold them back, whether in their personal relationships or professional lives. With nearly a decade of experience in corporate learning and development and a certification in integrated attachment theory, she uniquely combines professional expertise with personal insights to empower women to transform their lives. Her podcast has resonated with thousands, offering a fresh perspective on issues like jealousy, insecurity, and overthinking. Shannon is here to share her inspiring journey on how she built her show from the ground up and the impact she aims to create in the world. Tell us your name, the name of your podcast, and what your podcast is about. The floor is yours.
So my name is Shannon Bryant, and I am a confidence and pattern transformation expert. My podcast is called Topself, and the podcast helps women who are insecure and jealous in their relationships. So we do a lot of coaching and discussions around how to get to secure in relationships.
Wow, Topself.
Yeah.
Your name is short. It's catchy. How did you even come up with that
Well,
name?
interestingly enough, there was some thought behind it. My part of why I do the podcast is to help women who had some dysfunction growing up and that now are the insecure and jealous kind in their relationships. And so the reason that was such a struggle for me and why I help other people do it, my father was an alcoholic. So, and then my grandfather always said, never stop learning. So I kind of took the top shelf alcohol, concept and had a little twist on that to Topself.
Ooh, wow. I see what you did there. That was brilliant.
Thanks.
Yeah. How old is the podcast now?
It is 3 years old. It'll be 3 years old in July. So we've been going for a while.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
It will be 3 years in July. Oh, okay. What are the odds? It's right. The moment you mentioned it, I was like, don't tell me that it coincided with your birthday.
With my what?
No, I said, what are the odds that she would just end up telling me that it's the same day as my birthday?
Oh, oh, that's great.
I guess not.
No.
Yeah, 3 years. That's okay. Just for those that are listening to, what month is it in?
What month is it now?
Oh, I said for those that are listening to, and out of curiosity, what month is your birthday in?
My birthday?
No, the month. It's just the month I'm asking for.
Yeah. October.
Okay. I was like, okay. I was like, what are the chances? Because I've had a guest tell me that their birthday happened to be the same day as the birthday the anniversary of the podcast.
No, different months. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, 3 years. That's the anniversary will be huge. Are you making plans yet, or we're just gonna, what will be?
Yeah, I think we'll just continue to go with it and see what happens. I was quite surprised when I started it. And there's really a story behind why I started the podcast on the topic that I did. But I was really surprised at how many people I heard from, especially women who were just saying, oh my gosh, thank you for talking about this. And I thought I was the only one. So as long as I'm getting that feedback and I feel like it's helping other people and serving a purpose, then I'll continue to do it as long as I can.
Okay. I want you to tell us I know you started the podcast because you yourself um it was kind of how you solve a problem for
Mm,
yourself, and then you end up saying, okay, I could solve this problem for other people too. Let me put it out there too, and
yeah.
you share it with the world. And why a podcast in the first place? I mean, you could do every other thing. Why did you choose podcast? You could have written a book. Why
Mm.
podcast?
Well, I chose podcast. One, I think I love to talk. I've been told that, so I talk a lot, which kind of made sense. Then, okay, let's get on a mic and talk as much as I want to. But more so than that, it was really a way to reach more people at once because I can speak on stages and I can write a book. But this just gave a way where I can really stay in contact week after week after week and show up for people every single week. They can expect when the podcast episode is going to come out. And it really, in a way, it kind of forms this trust and this relationship between me and the audience. I hear from them, they hear from me, and that just gave a way where I could feel like a part of the community, but then they also felt like they had someone, that's showing up for them each week and that they could hear something new from. So that's really why I chose the podcast.
Wow. Okay. Okay. So it's been 3 years right now. Is the podcast audio only or video and audio?
It was mostly audio until this year, and I just started putting it out on
Okay.
YouTube and using video. And so that's new for me. I still in my mind have this, I guess, I favor just podcast being actual just audio. In my mind, that is what a podcast is. But,
Yeah.
sometimes you have to go with the trends and go with the times. And so we know that people love to also watch. And so that's why I started doing the videos. So, and it gives them too, because I have guests on so they
Okay.
can see who the guest is and get a feel for the guest and also have that connection with the guest as well through video.
Yeah. How's the YouTube
It's
doing?
slow going for me. It's not, one of my specialties. I feel like I do much better in the audio, but I'm learning. It's a slow process, but I know, it'll pick up and we'll just continue to get more subscribers on YouTube as well. So the audio version does very well. It has done very well for the last several years, and I know that the YouTube will pick up there as well, just kind of getting the word out. It's
Can
more on me than the audience, right? It's
can
it's me getting it out there.
can we can we do something semi crazy? Not exactly crazy, but it's in the spectrum. Can you pull up the YouTube channel and on your screen and then share your screen with us?
Okay. What are we doing?
Or we're just looking at the YouTube channel and then it's also an opportunity for us to activate YouTube channel in the video.
That's funny.
But yeah, it's just like so if you're a lady and everybody needs confidence, but if you're a lady and you do need some confidence and to be a top self, do subscribe to our YouTube channel. And uh, is the name Topself or Shannon
It's
Bryant?
Topself. So, and let me get this content up here as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in the meantime, so we'll keep the
Yeah.
conversation going. Now that you've been doing the podcast for 3 years, right? It's strangely good, right? That the podcast you started it's a podcast that helps people become their top self, because I don't know what your journey might be like, but I feel that for me personally, podcasting has been one of those things that has questioned all my doubts and all the fears and all the things that I have become more confident because I get to talk to a lot of persons. And I think recently, yesterday, I was having an interview with a guest, and I was like, I think we should, in my job description, when people ask me, what do I do for a living? I'll tell them that I talk to strangers. Yeah, because you're straight, like, I don't know you. Like, you don't know me. And I'm having a conversation with you here. And yeah, that's the podcast. I record it and I
Right.
post it on. And yeah, that's an episode.
Yeah. I was
Yeah.
trying to pull up from
So,
actual YouTube instead of like my dashboard because I don't think anybody wants to see that. So,
no, just
yeah.
YouTube, just YouTube, just YouTube. I don't want to go into the details. Just YouTube. Like, what would we see if we were to like check
Yeah.
YouTube? and just see what the video looks like, the thumbnail, and
It's,
Why do you say you don't think anybody wants to see
no,
the
I'm just
dashboard?
saying because that's like information on all the episodes. I was trying to pull up what it actually looks like on YouTube, but it's not doing it for some reason.
Yeah, are you monetized on YouTube
No,
yet?
no. Literally just started to do it here. I found my other one, but not the one that we're talking about. So, yeah.
Oh, wow. What happens to the YouTube? I hope we are not going to struggle like this if we are to search for the YouTube channel.
Yeah, I'm having trouble finding it, so I'll keep looking as we kind of chat through.
I'm confused. What's going on?
I don't know. It's not pulling it up.
Is it like the channel is not showing when you search for it is not?
Yeah, on the public on the like I can go into my YouTube studio, but I was trying to show that's what I'm saying. Topself. Yep, but it's not pulling them up.
Okay. Okay. Do you remember the exact title word for word for your last episode?
I can put it in there.
Your most recent episode you pop. Just search for that word for word and then maybe add Topself to it and it's gonna pop, and then you can find your way. I mean the SEO algorithm stuff is not yet, you need to like do some optimization such that when you search for Topself, it's gonna pop up as the first result.
Yeah. Okay. So I will share my screen and we'll just show the entire screen here or the window. So here it is here. 5 daily gratitude habits to quiet anxiety and reclaim joy with Dr. Peggy DeLong.
Wow, your titles are optimized. Can you click into the channel so that we see what the
welcome back to episode 2.
Oh.
That's it. Yeah.
Wow. That's brilliant. Wow. 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 Let's talk about starting with a bang.
Yeah.
Straight to business.
Yep.
Yeah. It's nice. It's of course your setup is great, and the videos look nice. Yeah. I was hoping for us to like capture, but now you've seen the channel, you can go check and see what the numbers and the subscribers and the views look like. Yeah, well, we're hoping to see if we could like but it's okay. We can go do that after the episode. Yeah. Wow. So you mentioned that you've been on YouTube. So what the question I want to ask now? So far, how many months or how long have you been on YouTube?
I just started this year on YouTube, and not all the episodes are on there yet. But we just started putting them out there this year, so just a couple months ago.
Okay. How's what's the question? How's the discoverability of YouTube work?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's slow going, and I know that it'll just continue to get better. But yeah, it's working out well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing, and showing us the YouTube video. Yeah. Okay. Over the course of 3 years, would I be correct if I say that what you do on your podcast is what you do professionally, or do you do something different professionally?
No, it's the same. So I coach women and men on insecurities in relationships. And I'm a speaker and I do workshops for organizations. So a lot of different things, but they all tie into the insecurity and jealousy that we feel. And so, yeah, it all ties together, the podcast and then what I do for a living.
Okay. I'm curious. Are you the one producing your podcast, or do you have someone helping you out with that?
I produce it, this one, and then I have a different one that I have somebody else who produces it.
Okay, tell us about the other one.
Well, that one's separate and through a network, so we're just gonna focus on. Yeah, I just focus on my personal.
I see what you're doing there. No, I said no. Yeah. Okay, but just out of curiosity, did you start the podcast on the network after this your personal podcast, or before?
After.
Okay, after you started. Okay, so it was more like this Topself led to being on that network.
Yeah. Yep.
Huh? Okay. Yeah, something like that. Okay. Wow. Okay. So okay. So let's can you show us the behind the scenes of how you prepare the meal, the podcast. How how do you make the podcast? What do you use? Like, what softwares are you
Mhm.
putting together? Like from idea to
Yeah.
releasing an.
So, I go through, I know my avatar very well. So I think it's important that you know who you're speaking to, and you know all about that person. And so, again, usually if you're starting a podcast, it's something that you want to have experience in. You want to have, whether it's professional experience or personal experience, and you want to know who exactly you're talking to. So then I just come up with podcast episode ideas. And so some I do solo episodes where I'll pick a topic and I'll talk about that topic, or I'll have guest episodes. So I flip back and forth between the two. And in terms of recording, I use for my personal one, I use Squadcast and use Descript for editing. And so I run it through that, record in Squadcast and then edit it in Descript.
Okay, so um, uh, around if you could give us a ballpark of how much it costs to produce the podcast. Of course, we're not
Mm-hmm.
counting your time for editing and production and all that, but just the tools, the
Yeah.
apps that you use and pay for every month to get the podcast up.
Yeah, so I use Kajabi as part of my platform because I do coaching and some other things and workshops.
Okay,
But in terms of
yeah.
platform, there are different ones that people can use. So you would just find a podcasting host that you like and upload your episodes to the podcasting host, and then put it out to the different directories. So Apple, Spotify, all the different ones. I'm sorry.
Which one do you use? What do
Well,
you
there are
use?
different ones that people can
We
use.
want to know.
So
I feel like you're hiding something from us. We want to know what you use. Tell us the secret, the things in your recipe. What do you use to make your podcast? Where is everything
yeah,
coming up together?
no,
Huh? You're hiding from telling us
nope, it's
something.
not about hiding. It's that I'm not promoting any particular platform. There's Buzzsprout
Oh, no, 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 no,
platform
no,
you can
no.
choose from. There's
Okay.
Spotify, so all kinds of different ones. Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're doing there. It's all right. Okay. I guess we'll have to skip over this section of the episode. Yeah, because usually I like to see the operation of how every guest makes their um podcast, because it's just to give people that the possibility of it. There's no one way to do it.
Yeah,
Like you could do it any,
that's
like
right.
there's so many ways. I've had different hosts tell me different, and I know that at some point in time it's not really a matter of okay, this is the way you should do it. It's a matter of this is the way and sometimes it might resonate with someone that, oh yeah, I thought I had to do it this way. This guru said, but this is someone who has a podcast running for 3 years and podcast is still saying, maybe I could do it
Hmm.
that way too. And if it works for you, fine. If it doesn't, I mean, find out what works.
Yeah,
Thank you, Shani.
absolutely. Well, thank you.
Yeah, I want us to get into a very juicy part. We'll talk about this part and then we'll get into the really deep part. But before we get into the deep part, I want us to talk about something that interests me, and that's the podcast money.
So I make income and money from the podcast through my coaching clients. So certainly the podcast brings in coaching clients. I have coaching certifications and other things that I've done, and then workshops that I offer, things like that. I don't do any type of different
So what?
monetization with my podcast.
Yeah, it's a good thing you mentioned because most of the time, some of the podcasts, if even though they are selling their own products on their podcast, that the podcast is not monetized because you're not doing ads and sponsorships. That's it's not making money. But I would just want to know, do you if the clients are
Hmm.
actually coming from the podcast? Because, I mean, no, the clients could be coming from maybe a
Hmm.
speaking engagement you went for, and they're like, oh yeah, I want to have a, but that won't be your podcast. So how do you really know that? Oh, this client, this person I'm coaching, they came from
Yeah.
my podcast.
So I track them different ways through lead magnets. If they set up a discovery call, then when they set up that discovery call, they are given a set of questions that they answer. And one of them is how they heard about me. So, and then of course, when I speak to them, I know that they're listeners of the podcast. They'll usually mention it or they'll mention it in the discovery call. Yeah.
I like that. I like that. Yeah, that's it's important. for not for everybody though, but since it's connected to your business, it's nice to know, okay, where are the leads coming from, the clients coming from, so we can double down on what's working and know what to like cut off or what to like
Yeah.
focus on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So far you've been doing the podcast. Have you gotten speaking engagements? I know you said you.
Yeah. So I have had different speaking engagements. I trying to think if any have particularly come from the podcast. It's my own pitching that I also do, and just connections that I already have, committees that I'm on, different things like that. So,
Oh, wait. You said something. I'm not sure I quite heard. Wait, I'm not sure I heard you well. Did you say pitching? It's my own. You said something like it's my own pitching that I already
mhm.
do, something like that. I didn't get that part.
Yeah, pitching just like I would pitch to be a guest on a podcast. I also pitch to, yeah. Hmm.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
my bad. I was like, oh, what did she say? I
Mhm.
didn't know you said
Yep,
pitching.
pitching.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. Forgive me. Yeah, yeah. No, you said it well, but it's just that I didn't get that part. So
Yeah.
I was like, let me ask so that I don't end up nodding my head like an agama lizard and like with whereas I have absolutely no
Yeah.
idea what you're talking about. Okay, so okay, you pitch people, but you've never really had anybody. Actually, you can say this specific one came from the.
No, but I think the podcast helps when, this way, when you are pitching people, they can hear how you sound, they know the topic, they can, just hear how you are and how you speak. So, and knowing that you have an audience that is, I think, important when you're looking for speaking engagement. So the podcast, where while it might not come from somebody who actually listened to the podcast and say, oh, hey, I want her to come speak at our event, it is when you're pitching to places to come and speak, and that gives them a place to go listen.
Yeah, yeah. I was about asking you the regular questions I ask, and I was like, oh, I'm talking to someone who helps people, boost their confidence and get in the game and do the things that they need to do without having to um get scared over what people are saying or people are not. And I was like, well, a lot of persons they want a podcast. They start a podcast first month, 2 months. And it's not because they don't have the resources, not because the time is not there. It's more they're not confident they have something to say. They're
Mm,
not confident they articulate enough. And
yeah.
yeah, can we go back three years back and what would you
Yeah.
say to
It's a
to
good
us?
question,
And yeah,
because that does happen with people. They think, oh, why would anyone listen to me? What do I have to say? How could I help people? So, we're all human and we come up against those questions quite often. But, one of the things that is great about having a podcast is it's your show. Yes. You?
yeah. Sorry to interrupt you. Can we like make this kind of like I want us to experiment with something, and if you're down for it, that would be nice. But if not, we can just do traditional science things. Now, I've spent a lot of time, I've done a lot of research, and I've kind of like internalized all the SQs, um, all the things that people say that they think, well, more like the things that the excuse people give for not doing the things that to do. And so I would be them, and so you ask me the questions, and I'll give you the answers to things, and we can do that back. So you are more like a confidence coach, and I'm struggling with podcast
Mm-hmm.
confidence right now. Th- Am I making sense? I feel like I'm just saying
Well,
gibberish.
I was just kind of explaining that rather than doing an exercise, but just saying that, that is one of the things and the benefits of having a podcast. So you have your own podcast. If you were anxious or having those thoughts that someone's not going to listen, or how can I help people, or why would somebody choose to listen to this podcast over another? Everybody kind of has their people. And I think that's why it's really important, one, to know exactly who you're talking to. So having what we call your avatar in place, you know exactly who you're talking to, and you're going to resonate with the people that match up with you. So there might be, hundreds and hundreds of confidence or pattern transformation experts out there, or people who are talking about insecurity or jealousy. But they're going to be people that click with me, the way I speak, the way I represent myself, the way, just the stories that I tell. They're going to connect with you personally. So just because there are other people out there doesn't mean that it isn't something that you can't do or that people wouldn't choose you maybe over other people. There are billions of people in the world, and everybody has their own audience and their own set of people that will connect with them. So if you're having those thoughts and questions about yourself and not feeling confident, it also is about taking the steps and letting that be your momentum. Confidence shows up before you do. So you've got to take the steps and let that be momentum. So taking small steps and just putting yourself out there, talking about what you want to talk about, talking from the heart. And I think the biggest thing when it comes to that is coming from a place of serving someone else. Because if you're worried about yourself, you're worried about how you're coming across or what you're going to say or messing things up, you're not focused on the person that you're supposed to be serving. And so if you focus on them and you're coming from that place, then it's not about you anymore. So then there's really nothing to worry about. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I feel
Yes,
super
good.
pumped right
Good.
now. I can cure cancer. Yeah, thank you so much. Wow. At a point in time, I nearly forgot that I was the host of the podcast. I was like,
Yeah.
I was just shaking my head. Okay,
Go on, I'm
go on,
listening.
go on. Thought I was listening to episode. I was like, so dude, you're supposed to moderate. Yeah, you're supposed to you're supposed to ask next question. So would I have any form of awkward silence? I was like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
good.
Thank
Yeah.
you
That
so much,
just means
Shannon.
it resonated, right?
Yeah. I mean, I get to test the taste the episode and everything before it goes live to the audience. So
Good.
if I get value from it, like I'm 100% sure that they
Oh,
will get
yeah.
value
I
from it.
love having guests on and learning from my guests all the time. I mean, that's also the beauty of it, too, is as the host, you also get to learn things right alongside with your audience. So I think it's amazing. And you guys get to learn together, of
Yeah.
course. Yeah.
What's one thing about podcasting that excites you most? Like if I mention the word podcasting, what do you think? What comes up in your head
I
right
think
now?
the biggest thing is being able
Yeah.
to connect with people all across the world that you wouldn't normally get to do. It's like the world of the internet too, right? Like we are miles and miles and miles, worlds apart, and we are able to connect. I love to look at the podcast stats when I see how many countries, we're over 100 plus in over 100 plus countries. And that's just amazing to see all of the different countries where somebody is listening to the Topself podcast and getting value from that podcast, where it's hard to do that through other avenues.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like this is like a universal thing. Most of the guests, once I ask them, what excites you about the podcast? I connect. I'm like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
I was like, I'm waiting for that day where somebody will tell me something different. But until they,
Uh-huh.
I feel like I was like, she's going to connect. She's going to say connect. I'm
Yeah,
like,
well,
she's
I
going to
think
say
that
connect.
that's why people choose
Yeah,
it,
that's true.
right?
Yeah, I mean,
Because otherwise, they do something different.
yeah, maybe it's because I speak to people who do shows where they interview. If you probably they do not do documentaries, I don't know. Maybe until then, maybe I'll see a different version that excites. I mean, it's what excites, and yeah, it's like a short. Other than that, it's you network, you build your network in the industry, wherever. Like in your own case, Topself, right? You talk to guests in the industry, and you also build the listeners from all over. And I mean, if you wanted to talk to people from different countries, there are countries that you might not even be able to go to, but yet someone is listening, and that is just
Well, and I think the
fantastic.
other really great thing on the other end is that person gets to listen and maybe find out information that they don't have to share with anyone. It's personal to them. They don't have to go to a class. They don't have to show up for a workshop. They don't have to, go to a support group or put themselves out there. That's theirs, private. Nobody needs to know, or, nobody needs to be privy to that information of what podcasts they're listening to and what topics they're listening to. So I love that fact too, that people can feel safe in listening to the podcast of their choice and learning about topics that they don't have to necessarily share with other people.
Yeah. Yeah. So far, for the past 3 years, you've been doing the podcast? And I know I did ask you a question like this earlier. Um, what would, you've worked on the podcast and you have those numbers, you have listeners, it's like leading, it's feeding the ecosystem of the business. But I wanted to tell us what the podcast has done
Mm-hmm.
personally, right? How has the
Yeah.
podcast worked on you for the
So,
past 3 years?
in particular, with my personal podcast that talks about insecurity and jealousy, it was a big leap for me, who is maybe otherwise pretty private, to talk about things that I did in times where I was jealous and insecure in my relationship. And I think that's been the biggest thing and transformation for me, is realizing that other people who are struggling with this, one of the things that comes with it is a lot of shame and guilt. They don't want to admit that they're doing those particular things. They don't want to admit that they're,
Yeah.
looking through their partner's phone, or, looking there up on location, those types of things. They don't want to admit that. So I kind of do it for them. And I'm sharing the stories that I have done in the past in relationships. And that gives them then a way to go, oh, it's okay to talk about this, because we're all human beings. We all have stuff that we need to work on and make improvements to. So I think that's been the biggest change for me, is realizing this is okay. I don't have to be ashamed of it. I don't have to be embarrassed by it. And talking about it really is the way that we can overcome it and help other people overcome it as well.
Yeah. Do you just out of curiosity, do you like I don't know, do you like do a review of like maybe end of yeah, that reminds me. Yeah, I know I did ask you about the anniversary and you said, oh, we're gonna keep on doing the podcast, but like what are some ideas of things you could do to celebrate the podcast
Mm.
anniversary? I mean, you could cook and then send me my cake, but other than that, what are some things you could
To celebrate the anniversary, that's a good question. And it's something that I haven't done maybe that well. So for the 50th episode, earlier on, I did have clients who went through a boot camp, who did a workshop of mine, who were coaching clients. I interviewed them for the podcast to just talk about how far they've come and what things are different in their life, just to give the listeners an
Yeah.
idea of, what is possible when they start to focus on it and do some coaching work. But other than that, I haven't done a ton of celebration. So I'm up for ideas on, what do we do to celebrate the big milestones of the podcast? So, um, you know,
I
uh,
mean, you could you could do an episode where a solo episode where you reflect and talk about a lot of it's I don't know how your episodes yeah, and I didn't ask you that. Like in how often do you
every
release episodes?
Tuesday.
Okay,
Hmm.
every week.
Every
Okay,
week, with the
okay,
exception of a
okay,
few when some
okay.
things
Not
come
so
up. Yep,
intense.
but every week. Yep.
Do you record episodes in advance or you just record and publish
Yeah,
that same
no,
week?
I have to record them in advance. And so I'll batch episodes. So I'll write a few if I'm doing some solo episodes, and then I'll line up guests, and kind of try to batch them as close together as possible. It doesn't always happen, and there's been some times, that I didn't get ahead enough, but for the most part, yeah. I like to batch them and do them ahead of time, so then I don't have to stress every week of trying to figure out what I'm going to do.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, one every week. That's
Yeah.
4. Yeah, that's. I mean, that's a. Is that? I mean, you tell
Well,
me. Is that a lot?
podcasts are a lot of work. I think, when people say, oh, just pick up the mic and start recording, yes, but there's a lot of other things that go into it. So you have to edit them, right? I mean, I don't know. How often do you do
Yeah.
yours, right? Like, does it feel like a lot for you? But
Let's not go there. You're the star of
yeah.
the show. Let's allow you to shine because if I start talking about mine, is gonna make yours feel small. No, yours is a lot.
Yeah.
You are the
But
star. It's your show. It's
yeah,
your
but
moment.
when we do it,
Yeah.
when you have a podcast that you're doing every week, there's a lot that goes into it. If you're doing it yourself, right? You have to edit it. You have to
Yeah.
produce
Yeah.
it. There's steps. Then if you want stuff out on social media to promote it or other things, also being guests on other podcasts like this. So you have to make time to pitch to other podcasts or accept and record with other shows. That also helps your podcast to grow. So there's a lot more that goes into it than just picking up the mic, recording, and, putting it out there. And then if you're doing YouTube videos, that's a whole nother thing as well. So, but it's totally worth it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, if let's say we were, I don't know, what do do over there? Like, okay, what do they call a gathering in the evening where, it's more like a small party. It's not like big party, but it's a small party where everybody's gathered and, you people are sharing some of their personal stories and war stories. And yeah, and someone is like, yeah, Shannon, you do have a past. Yeah, tell us something. Tell us some of a crazy story or a story about your podcast. And you're like, do you have one? Yeah, I'm hoping you do have one, or two, or three you
A
could share with
crazy
us.
story about my podcast.
It doesn't have to be crazy. It doesn't have to be easy. But as long
Yeah.
as it's interesting,
Well, I
we'll
think the
take it.
way that the podcast started, to me, it's something that I will always remember. So I was speaking for a women's ACA group, which is Adult Children of Alcoholics. And
Okay,
I was speaking to that group and just
okay.
talking about, this is before the podcast started, and just talking about what it was like to grow up with an alcoholic, and then how that affected me as an adult, and what things did I recognize that may have come from that dysfunction. And part of what I was talking about was being insecure and jealous in relationships, and how I had a really hard time in relationships. And I just shared some of the stories that I did, some of the insecure habits that I got into, and some of my jealous moments as I was speaking to that group. And at the end, all of these hands went up, and these women were like, I can't believe you just said that. Like, I can't believe you just told that story of something that you did. I can't believe that you're talking about this, because I suffer from it too. And I would have never, I just don't have anyone to talk to this. I don't have anyone to talk to about it because it's embarrassing. I feel ashamed. And that's when I knew that I needed to do a podcast about it, because I wanted to be able to help other people and not have them go so many years like I did, feeling that same way and feeling like they have no one to, talk to about it, or no way to make things different. So that's really, how the podcast got started.
Do you have a podcast?
Hmm.
I feel like what you just narrated is like kind of like a like I'm like right now I want to go listen to the podcast. I'm like, wow, that's brilliant. Like I was this. I know you could have gone into some juicy
Yeah.
details, but
Yeah.
for of other things you didn't mention some juicy. But I'm like, yeah, no, because usually when you ask, well, tell us about your podcast. Well, it's a podcast where I talk about
Mm-hmm.
confidence. Sorry, I'm not. This is not personal. I'm not talking to you. It just happens to be the example. I talk about marketing and stuff like that. And yeah, there's nothing there. But then you're like, okay, I was in this stuff, and then I was this, and I was about losing it, and I started a podcast. Now there's a story.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you know, right now I feel like you're carrying cancer right now. The way you said you just introduced the podcast.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
brilliant.
Yeah, I mean that, and I
Yeah.
knew from that moment, and even within the first couple weeks of doing the podcast, I was getting emails from people, and a lot of times in the podcast world, you don't really hear a lot from your listeners unless they're really connecting with it, and you're doing things to give them an opportunity to give you some feedback like that. And so that's been that way from the beginning, where I receive emails constantly from people saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I found this podcast. I've been looking for something that talks about this, and this is the only one that's like really raw like this. So that's, I stick with that rawness and sharing stories like that.
Yeah. Have you ever had the opportunity to talk to any of your listeners
Hmm.
face to
I've
face?
actually met some. Hmm. Yeah. Um, it went fantastic. It was so much fun. And so I have someone who was actually from Hawaii who I met. They happen to still have family in the States, and we happen to be in a similar location at the same time. So, and what's also interesting about it is when I do some of the boot camp that I offer in the workshops, the people who are on group coaching together in those workshops, they will connect outside of the workshop. And there are some that are still friends to this day because they went through a workshop and they still lean on each other in times of, if they're really struggling through something still, at times they'll reach out to each other. So it's just been a great way, not just for me to connect with some of them in person, but also for them to connect with each other. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Um, you happen to be the one producing the podcast. You're also the face of you're the talent. You're also the one running everything, and you do have a business to run. And um, do you have any projections, any experiments, anything you currently you're thinking about or you're working on? That's you.
Um, well, I think just different, we're working on right now a course that people can just take on their own because I still offer the boot camp. There's another one actually coming up at the end of May, but not everyone is comfortable being in a group setting and talking about their personal problems. And then not everybody can financially afford one-on-one coaching. So having a course that I'm creating where somebody can just purchase the course, they can take it at their leisure, that however, whatever speed they want to take it at, and in private. So that's kind of what's next on the horizon for me. I've got a couple of those I'm working on, and those will hopefully be out soon. So that's kind of the bigger next step for us.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. What about the marketing of the
So, for marketing the podcast, we're just going to keep, doing the same thing I'm doing. We're going to continue with putting it out on YouTube and putting it in all the directories. I continue to be guests on other podcasts, and we'll just continue on that path.
Yeah, I noticed you mentioned being guest on podcast. Before I ask the question I'll ask, first question I would have to ask, is it?
Yeah. Yeah. It's working. I've got lead magnets that we do for when people first find the podcast so that they kind of come into the ecosystem and I can support them in more ways. We have a private Facebook group. So there's lots of different ways. And right now it's working as well and as much as I want and can handle. So we're in good shape right now.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, how often do you like? What's like? Do you have a strategy for guesting, or you just get
Mm-hmm.
like as it comes, or do you have like, oh, this is how and when, how many guest spots I have
Yeah.
for the month or something
Mm-hmm.
like that?
Yeah. So, for me, I will go through and kind of do a couple different, I'll focus on pitching. I might take 1 week and just really hit the pitching hard. And then just as I am scheduling them, spread them out throughout the month. We can't factor in when the host is going to publish the
Yeah, to
episode, but,
respond.
trying to spread out the interviews a little bit to hope, in hopes that it kind of falls in line with that.
Currently, like with the job and not job. Why did I say job? With the business, sorry for that. My bad. With the business, the podcast, and your own personal life, and amongst all other things that you have to like that are important to you. Um, how how many how often do you guest in a month?
It just depends. It depends on what's going on that month for me. So for example, if I'm doing a boot camp that month, um, in the boot camp is 6 weeks. So if I'm doing a boot camp at that time, I'll do less podcast episodes. It also depends on how many coaching clients I have at a time, because if I'm held up with coaching clients throughout the day, I'm not then available to do podcast interviews. So again, I'll try to, when the time comes and I know that there's some freed up time, I'll go in and I will pitch. But I would say if people are, trying to do it, you bare minimum, you want to be on one podcast a week, but I would definitely go at least 2 if you can. That's only 8 interviews, a month. It's really not that many.
How many did you do
Oh
last?
gosh, I don't know. I don't have the numbers with me. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'm guessing that you do have like a specific kind of like lead magnet or something like that that you
Mhm.
share with listeners when you go on podcasts, such that when people do download, sign up for the lead magnet, you can easily tell that, oh yeah, this lead magnet was made for um other podcasts. So I've only promoted this league magnets on other people's podcasts. So if they downloaded it, it means that they heard me, they saw me or heard about me on someone's show, and now they checking out my
Mhm.
league magnet. Do you have something in
Yeah,
place like that?
usually I'll do the attachment style quiz. So it's just a quiz that people will take to find out their what we call our attachment styles. But that's typically what I will give to the host or talk about in the episode, or I'll just direct them to the website. But yeah, I mean it's always a recommendation to have a lead magnet that you're doing, especially coming up with one that you only give out on podcasts, and then have something different if you're like doing a speaking engagement or a workshop. But if you know that that one lead magnet is what you always give on a podcast, then you at least know that that lead came from a podcast. Sometimes it's hard to tell which one. Most people don't have lead magnets for every single podcast that they're on, like a different one. That would be a little bit too much, but you can at least tell that it came from guesting on a podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm guessing you said earlier on it's not a matter of guessing. You said earlier on that it's working, and I mean that's what you're doing it now. And I just want to know, in the timeline you started the podcast 3 years, right? Um, have you been guesting before then, or it was like, oh, when you started the podcast, you decided to start guesting on other people's?
So, guesting on other podcasts, I didn't do until I had my podcast. I was speaking, so because I was speaking at, ACA groups and things like that. But in terms of guesting on other podcasts, I didn't do it until I had my podcast. Now, I do know other people who do guest, like if they have a business, they just don't have a podcast yet, they will still do guest appearances on podcasts to promote their business. So,
Yeah,
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 but the podcast and the business came
yeah.
hand in
Because
hand.
I had
Yeah.
to, yeah, I had to ask because you do the business you do, you've been doing it before you started podcast. So it could have been that since you're a coach that you've been guesting on other people's podcasts, and then you then say, okay, I'm going to start my own podcast. So I needed to be sure if you were
Mhm.
guesting before. So it was because of the podcast you decided to say, I'm going to start guesting, and that has been working out. And yeah, because the thing about podcasts, unlike other platforms, you're convincing people that don't even listen to podcasts to listen to you. But then on the podcast, it's just a matter of, do they want to
Mhm.
listen to you?
Yeah.
It's yes or no. If they want to listen to you, they'll listen to you. If they don't want to listen to you, they move on with their day to day. Because someone is already listening to a podcast and they like confident stuff, and the woman they feel they like the way you talk. They just resonate with you. They're like, oh yeah, I love to check out that. A couple of clicks away, you've seen your podcast and they're
Yeah.
listening.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like I
Yeah.
said, if you had a business and you wanted to do guest episodes, you could certainly do that ahead of time. Yeah, you don't have to have a podcast to go be a guest on other people's show.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much Shan, for
Of
sharing
course.
with us the for the channel, the confidence, a pep talk, and yeah, yeah. I feel like I'm going to clip that part and just play it and say, and then I'll put some nice song, and then for anybody that feels that, oh, I don't feel confident in my podcast, I'll just send them the link, and next thing you just start with a very strong say, you have to do this. How did you even say it again? But I'll go back and I'll do some
There
editing
you
magic.
go. There you
I'll make
go.
it
Do
pop.
some magic clips around it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you, because okay. Usually I do ask. Okay, you know what? Let's round up the episode before I start talking shop. Okay, where can listeners learn more about you
Mm-hmm.
and what you do?
Yeah, if they want to go to topself.com, that's the website. You'll find all the information about Top Self. There's some freebies there, and they can go listen to the podcast directly from the website as well.
Yeah, okay. Once again, thank you for being a guest on the podcast and for
Of
sharing
course.
your
Thank you
story.
for having me.
That's it for today's episode of my podcast story. I am Wisdom Okonkwo, and I hope this conversation sparked new ideas and gave you a deeper look into the heart of podcasting. If you've loved this episode, consider supporting the show by buying me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/wisdomhq. Every bit helps keep the stories going. And hey, don't forget to follow, rate, and share this podcast with another podcaster or creator who would find it helpful. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you in the next episode.